Are you rolling? Are we good to go? Okay. Oh, okay. All right. All right. Well, let's bow our heads. Start with prayer. Dear Lord, we're here to talk about a big thing coming up later this year. Has the potential to really be a life-changing experience. There are also things that could happen to make it difficult. And so we're just really praying that you would help smooth the way and that you would help us to develop a new heart for the world, your heart for the world. You said that you love the whole world so much that you gave your only son. And maybe through this experience we can have a little more of that love sink into our own hearts, become a little less focused on me and mine, and have a little more open mind and a loving heart. We're praying that those things happen in us, and also that we'll be able to do a lot of good for others. So, Lord, we want to follow you all the way, stay in your will, and just praying that you will bless this. We ask this in your name. Amen. All right. So, I think you all have seen the video of the last time we did this trip, so you've had your appetite whetted a little bit. I'm not going to re-show that to you. But we do have some details that I want to go over, and I think it's best at least a couple of times for us to get together in person so that there can be conversation and questions asked and answered. I'm going to go through a few things here. I just have a little agenda for myself and then a bunch of things that I'm going to put up on the screen. Do want to just speak briefly about the tea leaves that I'm seeing in terms of the kind of the safety aspect of the trip. There's one bit of good news, and that is the U.S. State Department, for every country in the world, you can go on and look at what their warning level for that country is. Now, normally we look at that warning level to tell whether there is some kind of malevolent danger. In other words, terrorism, high violent crime rates, and those kinds of things. So they have a 4-point scale. The North American Division of the Seventh-day Adventist Church has a policy that for church and school trips that you're not supposed to go to a country that is above level 2. Now, we got an exception the last time that we went to Kenya. They were on a level 3, but if you read through the actual State Department warning, that level 3 was clearly focused on a couple of regions in Kenya and 1 or 2 neighborhoods in Nairobi. So they weren't just saying the whole country is under a level 3, although if you looked at it, it was a level 3, but then they said this is because of this state and this state up on the Sudanese border or over on the East African coast. So we were able to appeal that, and even though we were at level 3, we got the trip approved because of the way that it was kind of identifying the specific places where the danger was. So right up until about 2 weeks ago, Kenya has been at level 3 for these many years, and just a couple of weeks ago it dropped down to level 2. Which is great news. That means that the U.S. State Department is looking at Kenya and is going, this is quite a safe destination to go right now. Now, there are a number of countries that are on level 3 or 4 now just because of COVID. They've never been on, at that level before. It's not because terrorism or violent crime. It's because of their COVID rates. So that tells you that right now in Kenya, that the level, the concern about violent crime and terrorism have gone down, and their COVID levels are quite low. So if we were going to be going next week, we could feel very comfortable about going there. Their COVID levels are lower than ours are. So that could actually be a place you could go and hide out from COVID. So things are looking quite good right now in terms of the safety and all of that. Of course, there's the issue of travel during the COVID age, And right now, there's no prohibition against traveling to Kenya. There is still the requirement that in order to come back to the United States, even if you're vaccinated, you have to test. There is talk about the United States removing that requirement. Seems a little bit strange to have that requirement when we have one of the higher rates of COVID in the world. The chances of us contracting COVID while we're over there and bringing it back are less than our chances of contracting it here and taking it there. So by the time we actually go, many things could change by then, but that's one thing that I think there's some likelihood that it could change. The camp does have a testing service that will come right to the camp and test us. It's not cheap. It costs $50-$60 for the test. The other way to go is to pre-purchase the airline-approved, at-home supervised kits. The problem with that is you have to have good internet connectivity in order for that supervision component to work. And we are now, I believe we're at 73 or 74 people on this trip. And for that many people to try to access that internet in a short period of time to do those supervised tests is probably unrealistic. So if there still is that requirement to be tested in order to come home, we'll probably end up using the service that they have there. Okay, so that's what I'm seeing right now in terms of any concerns about safety on the trip. Okay, yes?
Is there security provided at the camp for us?
Yeah. Well, yes, and it's actually kind of cool. The security at the camp are a couple of Maasai warriors. Most of the security that you're worried about at the camp has to do with wild animals. This is so far out in the bush, and there are a few of you who have been there who will back me up. Some people think I'm overly optimistic about things, so maybe some pessimistic people can back me up on this. But we are so far out in the bush that, anything that you would normally worry about in terms of crime, any kind of human danger, you're in more danger right here in Dayton than you are there.
I don't remember seeing anyone else other than the Maasai warriors and the camp.
Yeah, the two Maasai warriors, they walk around with spears in their hands, and if you get up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night and step out of your hut, they're likely to materialize beside you with a spear and walk you to the bathroom. They're there primarily to keep the wild animals away. But they also, at the camp, they do not allow, outside people to come onto the camp except for an hour or two every afternoon in a specific place where some of the Maasai people can bring their trinkets and things like that in and lay it out on the ground, and you can go buy stuff from them. But it's when you get there, you will feel quite secure other than having your head on a swivel for wild animals. Okay? All right. So earlier today, you all should have received, a couple of emails from me. One of them is this shared Kenya trip resource document. This year, I'm saving trees, and so I've created a shared folder that you can all access that has, I think, just about all the information that you need. So we're gonna look at some of this real quick, and you can access all of it anytime you want. I would take the link to this if you've got a computer and just drag it on your desktop so you've got it. They're easy to access between now and when we leave. One of the documents on here, this is a lot of information that I shared with you earlier when I first emailed out information about the trip, but this will allow you to go back and reference it. Okay? So it's just got some of the basics about when, where, why, what are we doing, who, the cost is still the same, and you can see there the things that are covered and the things that are not covered. Passport application fees. I do want to just briefly mention it'd be a good idea to go ahead and if you don't have a passport, apply for it, like in the near future, in the next couple weeks. I'm not sure what the turnaround time on those applications is right now, but I know that about 10 months ago, I had to apply. Actually, it was about 11 months ago. I applied for a passport renewal, and it took quite a while, and I even paid for the expedite on that, and I believe that it took about 12 weeks for me to get the passport back. So I would really encourage you, if you don't have a passport already, to go ahead and apply for that right away. You have to, in order to travel to most countries in the world. I need to double check on Kenya, but they require that you have, depending on the country, between 3 and 6 months of validity remaining on your passport in order to travel to these countries. So if you look at your passport and you see, well, it expires June 1st, then don't go, okay, I'm cool. No, you have to have 3 to 6 months of validity left on your passport when you leave. I'll look up which one it is for Kenya, but it's 3 to 6 months. So if you have a passport that's due to expire within that period of time after we travel, you need to get that renewed. Okay? Yes?
The link that you shared in the email,
Yeah.
it only takes me to the visa page. It doesn't take me to all those different documents that you were showing.
Really?
Yeah, just Kenya visa direction.
Okay, I have to double check that then. I thought I had sent the link to, okay, I'll resend out the link. You'll get a link that gives you access to this whole folder full of documents, okay, including this one that we're looking at here. You can see the things that are not included: the visa application, that's $50, any needed vaccinations, airport food en route, possible COVID test on the return, and you can see the payment schedule. I did kind of drop the ball a little bit about sending out a couple of reminders on that, but I need you to really make that a priority. If you're a student that is raising money, Olivia Rovod is the fundraising champ. She's already raised the whole thing. I think she told me she sent out about 50 letters, and she's all done. She's good to go. Those letters really do work. So kids, get on that if you haven't already, because we need to get on schedule with these deadlines. Okay?
I just wanted to let you know that we did Jackson on Friday, the passport, and the expedited as of right now is 12 weeks.
12 weeks, yeah.
That's with the expedition, so.
Yeah, it used to be when you expedited, you get it in like 6, and they're taking longer now. Okay, so that is important. All right, so what's that? Oh, you need 6 months of validity on your passport. So if you already have a passport, check that to make sure you have that much validity left on it. Okay? And the information's right here on this document about how you can make payments on the school's website. You can also drop a check off. Either one works fine. Fundraising, that's on here, exactly what to do with those letters. It's all on this document. And then at the bottom here, every trip I ever do, whether it's one of my independent trips, my vacation time, or a school trip, we always have a reading list. Because I'm just a huge believer in the life-changing nature of travel. And the fact is, if you put a little bit of time pre-travel into learning some stuff, it adds so much richness and meaning to the whole experience. And I'll be adding some more to this, but these are 2 books that I recommended the last time, and everybody that read them, either one of them, really, really talked about just how much more interesting it made everything. One of them is, well, I'll click on the links here. One is called why are we not opening? There we go. One is called The Cry of the Kalahari. We're going to see so much wildlife there. It will blow your mind. The Cry of the Kalahari is a really fascinating book. about two people, a married couple, that went out and lived in a very remote, isolated place in Africa, not in Kenya, but in one of the real wild parts of Africa, and essentially spent 4 or 5 years living with these animals and just observing things that, if you weren't there for a long period of time to watch, as the seasons change and as drought comes and all of that, what happens with these animal populations, and also the part poachers play and all that. It is a really, really fascinating book, and so it'll add a lot to your understanding of what you're seeing when you see these different species of wildlife there. The other one is a gripping tale about Stanley and Livingstone. Really, just one of the most unbelievable adventure stories ever, called Into Africa. The writer, I've read a number of his books. He's just a fantastic writer, Martin Dugard. And it's basically the story of this British explorer, David Livingstone, going into the middle of Africa. He was already a famous explorer, and it was kind of his last trip. And he went deep into the heart of Africa and ended up kind of losing his health and not being able to get out. And so it was a mystery to the whole world what happened to David Livingstone, this famous explorer. Stanley was a New York Times journalist who thought this will be the greatest story ever, and so he put together an expedition as a journalist to go and find Livingstone in the middle of Africa. And it's a story that just gets you armpit deep in Africa. And it'll really, really, once you get into it, you won't be able to put it down. So those are the first 2 books on the reading list. I really encourage you, students, I would think that either one of these might be on your accelerated reader list that you could get some points for here at the school. Okay? All right. So that's that. Let's go back here and look at these other documents. I guess you guys said you've already gotten the instructions for the visa application. Now, you don't need to do this until shortly before we go on the trip. It takes about 3 days from the time you do the online application until you get the visa back. Okay? But it's here for you when we're ready. I'll remind you as we get closer. I would do it like maybe 2 weeks before we leave. Okay? But all the instructions, screen by screen, are right there to walk you through it. You have in here also the fundraising letter. Remember, for this, you want to go in, you can enter your name, students, here, and enter it again down here. Print them out, send them out. Make sure and include a blank, no, not a blank, a remittance envelope with the school's address on it, and in the bottom left-hand corner, write mission trip. So when they come in, we can see it. We know it's a mission trip. We'll give you credit for it. If whoever donates to this wants a tax-deductible receipt, they must tear off and send in this, because we have to have that wording in order to issue a tax-deductible receipt, where they are not donating money to you, they are donating it to the trip fund. We're not allowed to give a tax-deductible receipt if it's earmarked for a specific person. So this wording lets the donor know you are giving to the trip fund at the invitation of this kid, and they also have to understand it's not refundable. So if for some reason you decided not to go, this money would get used for some other student. Okay? So if they don't want to be locked into that, then they can just send a check in, but it won't count as a donation for tax purposes. Okay? All right. Next thing we have in here. Let's go to this. This is it's an open shared spreadsheet where I need each one of you to go in and look at the different work teams that you can participate with and decide what it is you most want to do, what team you want to be a part of on the mission trip. And so I want each of you to go on here and give your top 3 choices ordered. So your first choice, you just go in and enter number 1, number 2 for your second, number 3 for your third. okay? There are some of these, we've got a lot of people on this trip, and one of the tricks is going to be to make sure we have enough work to keep everybody busy, because the worst thing is to get there and stand around and think, oh, what am I supposed to do? We want you to feel like you've got a purpose for being there. So when you do that 1, 2, 3, your number 1 is not guaranteed, okay? We're probably going to give preference kind of working down the line. We try to give a little bit of privilege to our seniors, so we'll try to make sure that they get their first choice and kind of work down from there. Let me just say a word about each one of these. The medical team, because we have a lot of people, and I believe we have 5 doctors and a good number of nurses on the trip, which should make you all feel comfortable. You know, if there's any kind of health situation on the trip, we have a cardiologist and several primary care doctors, internal medicine. We got you covered. And nurses that have a lot of professional experience. Because we have so many people, we're probably going to make 2 medical teams, okay? And that will allow us to do more good. That we can, instead of just going to 5 different villages and doing field clinics, we'll be able to go to twice that many, okay? And the way the medical clinics typically work is we have kind of a place where everybody lines up to get attention. We have a registration place where we have somebody that registers them, gets their name, and does a little interview with them to get what it is, what symptoms they're suffering from and all of that. And so that all gets recorded on a little intake form, and then they go to the next station, and there are students there who are trained to take their vitals. So their temperature, their blood pressure, their, whatever, I forget what all vitals we take. And that gets recorded on the intake form, and then they take that form to see a doctor, and what we'll try to do is have 2 doctors available at each clinic. They go and see a doctor, looks over what their symptoms are and what their vitals are, talks to them a little bit more, and then writes an order. And then we have a pharmacy with medications, deworming medications and antibiotics and various medications, and so then they take that order and have it filled at the pharmacy, and we have students helping out at every point along the way except for playing doctor, okay? So that's how that works. So if you're a student, you could be doing intake, you could be doing vitals, you could be doing pharmacy, or some of you may be doing a little bit of crowd control with the line and just kind of keeping everything orderly, okay? So that's the kind of work that you would do with the medical teams, all right? Dental teams, right now we've only got 1 dentist. I was hoping to have 2. The dentist probably is going to be working at the established clinic there because there's actually a dental chair and suction, and they have the ability to do some restorative care there, okay? So if you're a student and you're working in the dental area, you may be sterilizing instruments, you may be handing instruments to the dentist, you may even get to pull some teeth. Make sure to pull the ones you're told to pull, okay? So there won't be there isn't going to be a need for a large number of students with the dental team. My guess is there might be 3 or 4 kids that work with the dental team because, you'd probably rotate a little bit, instrument sterilization, being an assistant, handing instruments, some crowd control, just making sure things are running smoothly there. So there won't be a whole lot of opportunity for students there, but the ones that are there will get to have some really great experience. VBS, we're going to need a good number of kids for this, okay? And this is just children's programming. There's a school there that has about 800 kids. And so, we'll be kind of cycling through with this a VBS program for waves and waves of kids, probably 1 or 2 programs where we kind of run a whole bunch of kids through those programs over the course of the week. All right. Those of you who are going to be helping with that, Emily Cowell, Karen LeBeau, I think, we, we'll be we'll be talking more about plan for that. And then water filters. We won't need a huge number of kids for this, and this may be one area where some kids could kind of rotate through. So if a kid wants to see, I'm working on the construction team, but I want to do one day with the water filters, we may come up with a little rotation with that. So, a larger number get to experience it. And then construction, we're probably going to run 2 construction teams, again, because we've got so many people. It'll allow us to get twice as much work done. Last time we were there, we worked on a new dining hall for the school. It's still not finished. So that'll be, I think, one of our jobs is building trusses and getting the roof on. The walls are all built, slab is poured, all that. It needs a roof. Okay, and then they're probably going to have another building that we're going to be building from the ground up, and that'll be a lot of bricklaying. It's hard work, but it's extremely rewarding. Sometimes I think the construction might be the most rewarding thing, because when you walk away from there, there's something standing there because you came. And that's a really, really cool thing. I know everybody who always works construction, there's a big sense of pride in having done something important. Okay, you left your mark there. All right, so those are the teams that we're going to have. That just gives you a quick little rundown of what kind of work you would be doing there. So I'd like everybody to go on here, and students and adults, and just give your 1, 2, 3. And again, there are no guarantees that you're going to get your 1, but go on and express your desire on that on this form. Okay. Any questions on the work teams? Great. All right. I have a sample itinerary here. Here's the deal. I am still negotiating on plane tickets. I'm zeroing in on it. I'm hoping we're going to have it locked in the next few days this week. But I've come close to locking it in a couple times, then I'll find something that looks a little better and keep searching a little bit. But I'm zeroing in on it. Hopefully this week I'm going to have it locked in, and then I'll be able to give you a hard, fast itinerary. This is a sample itinerary. This was from the last trip that we did. And this is just to give you an idea. So as soon as I have plane tickets locked in, I'll replace this document with our actual itinerary. But this was the last time. We drove to Chicago. We chartered a bus, drove to Chicago. I'm not sure if we're going to be doing Chicago. Probably we will. I'm trying to see if we can get out of Cincinnati for a decent price, but more than likely we'll be busing to Chicago. It ends up being about the same amount of time either way, because if you drive to Chicago, like with this itinerary, we had a direct from Chicago to Chicago to Istanbul, and then a direct from Istanbul to Nairobi. If you fly out of Cincinnati, you're adding an extra leg. So you're often doing Cincinnati to Washington, D.C., to Belgium, to Nairobi. And time you add that leg, you're spending about the same amount of time as you do driving to Chicago and flying straight from there. And often you save quite a bit of money going out of Chicago. So that's what we're sorting through right now. Anyway, I do need to tell you this. I think I've already mentioned this. The way things have worked out, because we are such a large group, we are going to be filling up the camp. We will be taking every space they have. And that caused a little bit of a problem, because Mount Pisgah Academy is going to be in there right before we are. And there's no way that they and us could both fit in the camp. And so because of that, we have to push our departure off by 1 day. So we were going to leave on Thursday, I believe the 17th, but that would put us in there the same time before, they would still be there. So we have to leave on the evening of the 18th. That's Friday evening, the 18th, which will put us in to Nairobi either late in the evening on the 19th, Sabbath the 19th, or in the wee hours of Sunday morning, depending on the itinerary, one or the other. So I tried from the beginning very hard to avoid Sabbath travel. Just because of what I've described to you, we're not able to avoid that. We're going to do everything we can to make it a special day, and we've done this before, and we've found good ways to just kind of keep ourselves in a Sabbath mindset, and we will do that. But that's kind of how things are falling right now. If we get in on the evening of the 19th, we have a place, a great little compound with comfortable rooms and a good breakfast the next morning where we will stay in Nairobi that night. If we get in at 4 a.m. or something like that, which is possible on Sunday morning, we will load up in the Range Rovers and just drive the 7 hours straight to the camp that morning. Either way, we'll be getting into the camp sometime on Sunday by at least, early to mid-afternoon. All right? So, but after that, the thing that probably will be the most interesting here is just kind of what the daily thing is going to be. And so you can see this is a normal schedule for our day. Let me enlarge this a little bit. This will be a normal day there, and this will be 5 days. We're doing 5 days of work, okay? So you can see we have worship at 7 o'clock, breakfast at 7:30, depart for work sites at 8:30. We have lunch at the work sites, and then we typically come back to the camp around 4:30, okay? And then we have some free time, worship and dinner, bedtime 9:30, and every morning for people who want to get up early and do a sunrise hike, we do that, and that's pretty cool because you're seeing animals every time we go on those walks and just gorgeous views and watching that sun come up, over the African plain is pretty beautiful. So you'll have an opportunity to do that every morning. And so that's what your days will look like when you're there. And then at the end, we're going to have safari at the end on Sabbath and Sunday. So we get 2 days of safari. Some years when we go there, we'll get up like early on Sabbath morning, do some safari, and come back and go to church in a little church. There have been some years where we've just safaried all day, and that was our Sabbath, just out there in nature, seeing all those animals. And then we get a second day on Sunday. So you will get to see, last year we saw every animal you would want to see, or last time. We got down to the end, and we hadn't seen a cheetah yet, so we just went searching, everywhere for cheetahs, and we finally found one. Everybody was stoked because that was the one animal we hadn't checked off the list yet. Okay. Then after that, we just head back to Nairobi, catch a flight out either late evening on the 28th or the wee hours of the morning on the 29th to get back here on the 29th. Okay, so this is a sample itinerary. When we have the final one done, I'll get it up there so you can see it. All right. Let's see, what else do we have? Oh, packing list. This is up here too, so you'll be able to access this. You can see at this time of year, average temperatures 81 degrees during the day, 54 at night. Again, we're at 6,500 feet elevation, so it's not like muggy. It's nice dry air. It's a little bit of a California feel. I've never seen a mosquito there. That's why we don't require you to be on a malarial med. If you look at the CDC website, it will tell you when you go to Kenya, take a malarial med. The place where we go, the owner of the camp says that he's not aware that they've ever had a malaria case there. So I don't bother to take it there. You can decide if you want to get a prescription for a malarial med or not. On the CDC, they'll encourage it, so that's up to you. Okay? It is the beginning of the rainy season, and so there tend to be afternoon thunder showers. Sometimes they can be pretty impressive downpours, but we're in the Midwest. We have pretty impressive thunderstorms here too. So anyway, you can read through this. Mainly, the sun is pretty strong there. It's very close to the equator, and so I always take a big hat and make sure to keep the sun off as much as I can. But anyway, you can read through the rest of that. We don't need to go through it in detail. That'll be available to you. Okay, last thing in here, and this is important, we have a trip registration form that we're going to need from you. One of them on here is, it says adult registration, so this is a registration if a parent is coming along. Okay, so this is the one you'll use if a parent is coming along. So you'd put your name at the top, parent, and then add whatever family members are coming along here. And then there are a few things you need to initial off. I'll just mention here that you understand the pricing and the schedule. This one right here I think is important. It's just one of those statements that says lots of bad things can happen to you when you travel internationally. You understand that. Inherently hazardous. They can include but are not limited to loss or theft of property, sickness, injury, death due to accidents or crime. While reasonable precautions will be taken, I understand that I participate at my own risk. I understand that Spring Valley Academy will provide a travel insurance policy that will cover needed medical care and loss of luggage while in Peru. So you will have travel insurance. Thank you. I need to edit that. You can see I've used this form in the past. Thank you very much. Yeah, it'll be a little surprise for you. We're not going to tell you though right at the end. We're actually, yeah. Yeah, I will edit that. But that insurance policy, I mean, in all the years that I always buy the insurance for school trips, and finally used it a couple years ago when my son had to have an appendectomy in Lima, Peru. And it was great because, you know, if he'd had an appendectomy here in the United States, it would have cost me a couple $1,000s after insurance. And he had it in Peru, and it was funded 100%. I was very grateful that it happened there. Nice Adventist hospital. All right. Immunizations. I understand it's my responsibility to ensure that I'm immunized for COVID-19, Hep A, Hep B, and ensure up to date on tetanus. Most of you will have Hep B. A lot of you will already have Hep A. Got to have COVID to go on this trip. Just want to reiterate that. Yeah, I'm going to show you that in a second. Okay. Understand that if the trip itinerary has to be interrupted or altered, circumstances beyond our control, that we'll refund everything that we can. Everything we're able to get back, we'll refund it. But we can only refund what we get back. And then just if decisions need to be made for medical treatment, that we're given permission to do that. So that is in the folder. Now, if you have a student that is going without a parent, there's a second one here for that, where you just put the student's name at the top. So there's one that's an adult registration, one that's just a student registration. Okay? So both those are in there and accessible to you. Now, the last thing that's in here is this. It's a checklist of documents that I need you to upload. Okay? I sent out a link today to your private upload folder, where the only people that have access to it are you and me. Okay, so it's not going to be seen by anybody else, but you have editing rights, so you can upload these documents. These are the 4 documents that I need: a picture of your passport, a picture of your COVID vaccination card, your Kenya entry visa, and your registration form. So you can print off the registration form from that shared folder, fill it out, scan it, and upload it into here. So each one of you, let's see, I have here, yeah, you can see here I have I have this folder, and each one of you has a folder in it that's your private folder that only you and I can see. So when you upload those documents, they'll go into your folder. I'll have them here. So you have that check sheet, so you know which 4 documents I need. As soon as you get them, upload them there. Okay? The other thing that I'm doing that I haven't done yet, but you should in the next 24 to 36 hours, get invited to one final folder that's just for you and me, or a document that's just for you and me. And that will be, I have a separate Google sheet for each one of you for the accounting that I have for your payments. And so I have that. I sent out an update to you recently where I just took a screenshot of it so you could see how much you had paid. So you are going to get a link to that so that you'll be able to use that link to go on and check anytime you want. How many donations have come in? Where am I at now? Okay? So you'll get that in the next few days. So you can drag all 3 of those onto a desktop, the folder of shared resources, the folder that you have to upload documents to, and then the folder that you have for your accounting. Okay? So that'll all be there for you. Let's see. Let me get back to my... Not that. Here we go. Okay, so we're down to number 6, money. Shoot. I didn't check before this meeting what the currency exchange rate is now there, so I don't remember. I'll have to check and email that out to you. But the bottom line is things are inexpensive there. At the camp, where you're going to be spending most of your time, there's really not much to spend your money on. There will be Maasai people who come to the camp in the afternoon every day about the time we get back to camp, and they'll spread out all kinds of things, wood carvings and daggers and all kinds of, so a number of weapons and things like that they would love to sell you. You're welcome to barter with them. So you can spend some money there. I don't know. I figure you will have bought a lot of stuff if you spend $40 to $50. Yeah, those of you who went before, is that your memory? You will have bought quite a bit if you do that. There are a few other things at the camp you can spend money on. During meals, water is the beverage that's provided. If you want to buy a soda or something like that, you have to pay some extra money to get that. They also have a massage hut where you can go get a massage at the end of the day. I've done it. It's fantastic. Costs about $25 for an hour. It's a pretty sweet deal. But other than that, there really isn't much to spend your money on there. You'll have a little bit of time in Nairobi when we go back. Typically, we go to a shopping mall while we're waiting for our flight, and you can do a little bit of shopping there. There's not a lot to spend your money on there, so I don't really think you need to plan on bringing a lot of spending money unless you're somebody who just wants to buy loads of souvenirs to bring back. Okay. Typically, they have a fair bit of currency at the camp. So if you're wanting to buy something from, the Maasai people there, you should be able to change money right at the camp. There's not an ATM there. Okay? So, you're probably best off just bringing some American currency for whatever it is you want. If we get in late at night or in the wee hours of the morning, which we're likely to do, you're not really going to have much of a chance to go to an ATM. There's likely an ATM there at the airport, but for 75 of us to stand in line at an ATM, it's just not realistic when we're trying to load up and get out of there. So I would just bring American currency. You should be able to change it right there at the camp. I'll talk to them and make sure that they've got a good a good amount of currency available. But I would just bring however much you think you're going to need in American currency. Okay? And then last of all, rooming. Okay, here's something I need to say. Normally, when we go to this camp, we, let me pull up a couple photos here. This is, whoop. Am I? Yeah. So this is where most people will be staying. These are called, they call them bandas. Some people call them Hemingway huts. They're just these thatch roof huts that have canvas walls and a zipper door. And you go in, and they really are quite comfortable. They have 2 twin beds and a nightstand and a lamp. There's electricity in them. They're quite comfortable. There's a maid that comes every day and makes your bed, cleans up and all of that. This is not your gritty sleep on the floor mission trip. Anyway, they're...
Speaking of electricity, you need the converter.
Oh, yes. Yeah, as we get closer, I'll send you a picture of the converter that you're going to want. Anyway, that's where most of our group will be staying. And, in the past, when I've gone there, that's the only place anybody in our group has stayed. Because we're so large, we're going to be using every place that they have. Okay? And that means that they have 2 more levels above this in terms of, how nice the accommodations are. And so we'll be using everything. Now, the nicer ones are, okay, well, you'll see this a lot. Zebras hanging around the huts. You'll hear them grazing around at night. It's pretty phenomenal. This is the dining area. That's the afternoon thunderstorm. The next level up are these. It's kind of larger tents that have like 2 double or queen beds in them. A little step up. And this is like quite a bit, the really nice, cabin type accommodations. So it really was kind of nice when we had groups that were the size where everybody stayed in the really basic ones, so we didn't have the haves and have-nots. But here's what it comes down to, you guys. In the end, kids, we're gonna respect our elders. Adults are probably gonna end up in the nicer ones. Just accept it. Nobody's going to be roughing it on this trip. So, nobody is going to be swinging from a hammock or sleeping on a floor. Everybody's going to be fine. I just don't want anybody getting bitter if they don't end up in the nicer ones. I'm not sure how it's all going to come down, but part of it is going to have to do with kind of the rooming situation. Obviously, it's easier if 2 people, for some of these that have twin or double or twin or queen size beds, when we have couples that can share a bed, a family, that kind of thing, it's going to lend itself better. So we're just going to make the best decisions we can as far as fitting everybody in. And, if you don't end up in one of the nice cabins, you can come over and sit on the deck in the evening of somebody else's cabin and see the view and appreciate it. Okay?
The biggest advantage of the nicer is
The view.
bathroom and the shower.
Yes, they have a private bathroom, whereas the bandas, you go to a bathroom building.
And if you make friends with somebody that's in one of the nice ones, they might let you use the shower.
Exactly. That's right. Yep. So that's what the place looks like. This is the owner and his wife. This is one of the places where, they've got these great little viewpoints right out on the edge of the escarpment, looks down on the Mara Plain. It's just unbelievable. You'll see.
That's like a 1,000-foot drop.
Yeah.
I mean, not
Yep. You can sit up there and look down, and there's a pod of elephants down there, and it's something. Okay, yeah, that's Andy and Francis. Anyway, that's the dining area. That's where we'll eat our meals. A little more of the. Anyway, that's that. Okay, questions? Yes.
The visa form, is that one per family or one per person?
It's one per person. You have to do it for each person that travels.
Did you say that's not until like
Yeah, you'll do that a couple weeks before travel. Okay? Yes? Okay, that's a great question. What they should do is still tear off the bottom part of that form, fill it out, sign it, and then just write on their paid through school website, so that we have the documentation, and then they can get the receipt. Okay? Yes?
I'm guessing that you talked to anybody specifically that did not have a U.S. passport because your e-visa works differently.
Yep. We have 2 of our African refugee students that are going to be going on this trip, and we have to go. I'll be having to drive them to Chicago to get their refugee travel document at the consulate.
If you happen to have anything but a U.S. passport, you may want to check on that first because
Yes. Yeah, we have those African kids. Does anybody else not have a U.S.? I'll have to double check on that. I know we have the 2 African kids. Okay? Because that's true. If you're a citizen of some other country, there may be an additional visa required rather than just the online. That online visa, it's just a way to get $50 from you. That's really all it is. Yes.
Will there be a place to keep food? Because I'll need to bring it for diabetic reasons.
Yes. There will be, but you will want to make sure that your hut door is zipped shut fully.
Yes.
Because I was there one year where some of the adults in like the mid-level accommodations didn't have their place shut completely, and they had a thing of beef jerky in there, and some baboons got in and tore the place up. And did who knows what on the bed, and the beef jerky was all gone, but the bed was all torn up, and yeah. I don't remember. Do you remember? There was coffee? Okay.
A question going back to the vaccines. Do we send you a screenshot of the shot record, or how does it attach to the visa?
So, as far as the other vaccines besides honestly, I wasn't planning on checking any of the vaccines except COVID. Yeah, I need to check the COVID one. When we go to Peru, I get proof of everything because we do yellow fever and typhoid and all of that. We actually should have all the student vaccine records here already. Let me think about that a little bit. Yeah.
Do we need to have our COVID vaccination card with us on the trip?
Yes, you will have to carry it with you. The other thing is, when we're on the trip, for students who do not have a parent with them, I will be carrying your passports. Okay? We've had a bad experience with this. Very traumatic. And parents, if you're with your kid, I request that whenever they're not using their passport that you carry it. I don't know, I suppose there might be some students who are more responsible than their parents, but in general, we assume that that the parent will be the responsible one. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, it's going to be great. I'm excited. Well, that's all I've got. Let's end with prayer. Dear Lord, we just want to ask again for your blessing, your protection, and that you clear the way for this trip. Help us to be able to really do good things for you. And we want you to do good things in us. We ask this in your name. Amen. All right.